this isn't the best place for you. She said she had some personal issues. I'm like, I don't know what. But my question is, how do you pay your bills? Oh yeah, I gotta go into. I gotta add a topic.
Into what?
Oops. When you go live, I think you can add in a. I gotta get clean these glasses off.
So we are streaming live.
Well, I haven't gone live yet.
No, we're on Facebook, Twitch.
Okay.
Cool. Oh wait, that's you. This is. I think he goes to the gym.
Oh, let me add a title. That's what I gotta do.
I think Jimmy's at the gym right now. That's why. Test. 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 Ooh. Yellow. Talking to your mic.
Hold on. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
Let's turn on his mic. Inflation. See, I wish Ray was coming in because we could have talked about that ghost gun bullshit.
Okay, there we go.
Well, I'm going to check before we start. I want to make sure we're running on all 5 cylinders. Okay. Are you live on TikTok yet?
Not yet.
We'll go live and then...
Well, I want to make sure we're ready to go.
We are ready to go here in a second. Hold on.
Okay, so I'll go live. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so I'm going to go live right now.
Oh. Another test.
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
Okay.
Go live.
Lower me. Yeah. Give them a quick update.
I'm going live right now.
Oh, okay.
Hey everybody, this is John at Ubaldi Reports. We're just getting ready to go live on all our different streaming platforms. And tonight we're going to talk what's big in the news, and that's inflation. Inflation skyrocketed yesterday and today with the numbers coming out by the Labor Department show that the Consumer Price Index went up 8.5% in March. And then the Producer Price Index jumped to 11.2% for March as well. And this is at a 40-year high, and it's been at the highest level it's basically for the producer price ever recorded. So it's hurting a lot of Americans, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So if you have any questions, chime in, or at least type your questions in, and we'll try to get them answered, and we'll go from there. So we're just moments away from really going live. So
tell them if they got any questions, put it in the chat.
Yeah, if you have any questions, put it into the chat, and we'll answer those questions. So let me see where my co-host Joe is, because he's got the computer guru, and see if he's ready. You all set, Joe?
Yeah, I just got to check one more thing.
Yeah, we're just checking one thing just to make sure everything is up copacetic, and away we go. So, I mean, and also let me know what you're feeling. If you're feeling the effects of inflation through higher grocery prices, rent, gas prices, if you commute to work, or have you altered your spending because of inflation?
All right, we got 6 people on.
Okay, so let's get hit.
All right, ready? And 3, 2.
Hey everybody, this is John at Ubaldi Reports, providing fact, not fiction, as it relates to national and global issues. And with me is my good friend and fellow co-host, Joe Bitts. Joe is a retired combat Marine who was wounded in Iraq, and he provides good insight on the things that he sees, and I provide good insights on the things I see. But again, we provide fact, not fiction. We don't tell you how to think. We just provide the facts.
What's going on, John? How's your week going so far?
Well, so far it's been good. I've been working. I mean, I'll have the next 2 days off, which is the first 2 days off I'm going to have since I've been at the store, at the restaurant. So I'm tired. I'm going to sleep in tomorrow, hit the gym, and go from there.
Easter's coming up. What are you going to do for Easter?
Nothing much. I mean, I'll have to see, maybe do something with a friend.
Wait, hold on. Do Mormons, okay, this is a stupid question. Mormons celebrate Easter?
Correct, we do.
Okay. Where does it differ? Because, like, I always say you're more all-American than most people because Mormon is an American religion.
Well, just so you know, the full name of the church is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Okay.
So we celebrate the birth of the Savior Jesus Christ. We celebrate his resurrection. Everything about our church or about the LDS church centers around Jesus Christ. We believe he's our Lord and Savior. Every issue that we're going through, every problem, we can go through him to get resolution, to get help, and he's a conduit to our Father in heaven.
Okay.
So we believe in Jesus Christ. He's the total foundation of our faith.
All right. That's kind of similar to what we, I guess, non-denominational. It was.
Well, but I look at it this way. Everybody celebrates their faith differently. There's people who are I know people at work who are non-denominational. I went to a friend of mine's church a couple Easters ago, and she had it was different. It was kind of like a rock band. There was a lot of singing, but she liked it and it worked for her. And I'm glad she had her belief and her faith. That's what she liked. And I'm like, and she said, well, this is not something you're used to. And he goes, doesn't matter what I'm used to.
Yeah.
If you like it and it provides a good message for you, then I'm accepting of your faith.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of how it is normally, well, okay, there are people that usually take their faith or their religion and they like to cram it into other people's faces without them acknowledging it. And I see that kind of like, that's kind of gone, religion has gone a little bit more, what people are doing has gone more than just a religion. Now it's like, this is the way it is. This is how I believe it. So you need to believe the same thing, whether it's politics, whether it's religion, whether it's LGBT.
Well, here's an example. We both were in the Marines.
Yeah.
I don't drink. And obviously the Marines, drinking seems to be a big part of the Marine Corps culture.
Yeah.
I was always the designated driver. I hated going to bars. Hated it. But I wanted to make sure my fellow Marines and even my junior Marines, they had a good time and they got home safe. And I even told them, my choice isn't to drink. I don't drink.
Yeah.
That's my choice. If you drink, that's your choice.
Yeah.
And the way I believe, I can only take care of myself. I'm not here to judge you. I don't know what's in your heart and mind. Only two people know that. God and his son, Jesus Christ. And they're the only two that judge you. Our Father in heaven, or God, judges you with their advocate being Jesus Christ. He knows what's in your heart and mind, not anybody on this planet.
Does it seem like other people's opinion, or like it's actually no longer opinion for, like, I'm accepting of whatever political view you are. I mean, I have a few people that are not on the conservative. They're more of a, like, I would say not liberal, but more of like the
moderate
more moderate leaning left.
Okay.
And they don't maybe necessarily agree with what I think when it comes to politics, but also I'm not the one trying to invade in their political agenda.
Well, I've got friends who are progressives, and we have our conversation, but we understand each other. We all base our political beliefs either from family, experience, maybe you've seen something, but we all come to a different resolution. I was on my radio show this morning, and we talked about Tip O'Neill, the former Democratic liberal from Massachusetts, who was Speaker of the House in the late 70s, early 80s, and Ronald Reagan, who was a diehard conservative. They both fought like banshees from 9 to 5. Soon as 5 o'clock hit, bam. Hey, Tip. Hey, Ron. Let's go over for some drinks.
Wasn't it kind of like that coyote? Or it was like a Wile E. Coyote skit with the sheepdog.
Yeah.
And like it
Ralph
was,
and Sam.
Yeah, and it was like that the entire time. But as soon as they punched out, they were just like, "Cool, let's just hang out or something like that."
Exactly. And when they passed tax reform in 1986. Tip O'Neill said we raise taxes. Ronald Reagan said we cut taxes. But neither of them would rain on the other one's parade because they knew they had to give something to their base.
Yeah.
We don't see that today.
So I asked you I asked you a question, I think it was sometime late last week, but you did have a great response to it. And I said, when are the Democrats going to realize they effed up?
I think it's going to be November the 8th. The reason I said that is because Bill Clinton was a masterful politician with great political instincts. Once he lost the 94 election in the midterms, instead of doubling down on being more progressive, he triangulated to the center, and he co-opted a lot of Republican issues, like welfare reform, crime bill, and everything like that. And he won re-election, and he moved on from there. President Obama, when he lost the midterms in 2010, instead of recalibrating, maybe we were too liberal, let's go more to the moderate, he doubled down, and that's when he lost. Even though he won re-election for himself, it didn't translate to other Democrats across the country or in the Senate or in the Congress, and then he lost the Senate in 2014.
Where are we going with 2024? Like, when that's the next spotlight, it's probably not going to be Biden in jumping into that next seat. He probably will. Well, what's going to happen is Trump coming into the arena. Should Trump even come into the arena? Are we going to get somebody else like DeSantis or somebody else that might be a better fit for that? That's kind of like a little bit political, but also a little bit of about America.
That's the unknown. We don't know where this is all going to shake out because Glenn Youngkin won. He got the support of the Trump supporters, but he didn't openly embrace Donald Trump either. He just stuck to the issues. So at this point, we don't know. So we don't know on the Republican side if Donald Trump runs. If he doesn't run, the next number two that's very popular among the Republican base is Ron DeSantis, how he's governed Florida, how he handled the pandemic. Now, for the Democrats, that's going to be the problematic one. The Republicans have more of a deeper bench. Whether you agree with them or not, there's Mike Pompeo. Outside of Ron DeSantis, there's Mike Pompeo, there's Marco Rubio, there's Mike Pence, the former vice president. There's a couple of the governors. There's a couple of U.S. senators. They have a deeper bench. The problem with the Democrats is they're either old and white or young and progressive. So there's no in-between moderates. Because remember we asked that questions when we very first started this podcast, who could go toe-to-toe with Trump? And I said James Webb. And everybody's like, who's that? Well, he was a former Democratic senator from Virginia. He was a Reagan's Secretary of the Navy. He was a Navy Cross winner in the Marines during Vietnam. He's a family man. His son served in Iraq as an enlisted Marine.
I'd vote Democrat on that one.
He was very moderate on social issues, very moderate, fiscally conservative, very pragmatist when it came to foreign policy. But he couldn't get through the Democratic primary because they went too far to the left. So right now, and this will be even worse come 2022 if the Democrats lose in a big wave. They would have wiped out all the moderates. So then you're left with old white, young and progressive, and the progressive ideology is failing at every level. So they have a very weak bench. Their weakest bench, I would say, in generations.
What about Kamala?
Okay, in tongue-in-cheek on that, she should be the heir apparent, but because of her her duties as vice president and the way her actions are, she's not prepared.
Mm-hmm.
She is like overwhelmed at the job, and her staff is left in droves. You've got well over 12 or 13 senior staff members leaving her office, and then again, she's too tied to the Biden presidency. That's the problem with the Democrats in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
When they ran in 2020, it was them against the legacy and of Donald Trump. Donald Trump's policies, reputations, and policies. When they run in 2024, if it's not Biden, they're still tied to the Democratic policies. So the Republican would be running against somebody's policies, and they're not doing too well right now.
Okay, so I guess positive, and depending on how you look at it, the housing market, the prices you think are inflated, or do you think it's just like lack of supply of why the housing market is kind of just...
It depends on what region you look at. I know in California the housing prices are extremely high because they have a severe shortage of housing.
Okay.
So they got high demand, short supply drives everything up.
Now,
so every region's differently. I talked to a friend who's in real estate in Florida, and they said we get a lot of people coming in from the Northeast. So if you sell your house, let's say in New York, I'm just throwing a number for easy math, and you sell it for $500,000, but the average or median price of a house, let's say, is $300,000. And you can come down with cash. And I know a friend at work, he and his wife are trying to buy a house, and they've been outbid by people just throwing cash.
Yeah. Because
they can sell their house, buy something here. So, and that's fueling what the initial part of this podcast was inflation.
Well, I was going to get there.
Okay.
So, and with the housing, going up, there's also a few things that are kind of like trailing in behind that. But yeah, you mentioned inflation. When is it gonna maybe like even out?
That all depends how the Fed does, because the Fed to curb inflation, they have to raise interest rates. And I listened to some economists, various economic experts today. One of them was, I can't remember his name. I wish I would have remembered it. It was in the Wall Street Journals. I listened to Larry Summers, and I listened to others, and they said the way to stop inflation is you have to raise interest rates above inflation.
Okay.
So inflation's running around 8% right now through the latest CPI, Consumer Price Index. So if inflation is 8%, that means interest rates have to be above that into the 9 to 10% range.
Are you kidding me?
Because if you remember back, or not.
Whoa, hold on. You're saying that if inflation is 8%, that the mortgages or loans are going to be upwards up to 10%. Now,
to stop inflation,
mortgages are going to be a little bit different than
I
regular loans.
think they'll be the same, because if
that's a lot.
Okay, in the 70s, every time they tried to raise interest rates, it sent us into recession, so they pulled back.
Yeah.
Paul Volcker was selected as the Fed chair late in the 1970s under, I think, 78, 79, under Jimmy Carter. And what he did is he said, okay, we got to stop inflation. So he tightened the monetary supply, meaning tighten the belt, raise interest rates. I think interest rates went up into the 21% range.
Okay.
So that stamped out inflation because there's less money to buy anything. So you're just going to, it just killed inflation.
Yeah, so they're looking at interest rates about like 5%, and they're looking at...
right now, I think it's like 3% without having to look back. So, but if inflation's at 8%, interest rates are 3%, you got to raise it very rapidly. But by doing that, that means It's cost more to borrow money. It's cost more. Credit cards are going to go up. Interest on the debt, national debt goes up. All this has very negative connotations.
So thanks to my wife, I guess, and me just making stupid but good decisions. Like, I guess when it came to like the COVID, I kind of did the Mr. Magoo where I was actually just doing something and it just so happened to be the right choice or the right direction, because like when we refied our house, we refied it at the lowest mortgage rate that they were offering at the time. And then what we did is we got some equity out of it, so we paid off all our credit cards. So then we came up with like zero credit card debt. And, you know, Erin's kind of doing her credit card thing a little bit differently. I'm not even touching mine. And then, you know, time came around where like my vehicle just kind of, it was old, it died. Not as old as yours. You can keep that thing going. But, and I go, and because of, thanks to my credit score, I was able to get a 0% interest on a vehicle I bought.
Yeah, see, because of your astute finances, you were able to do that.
Yeah. I had no plan, zero planning when it came to that.
Okay, but you made the right decision. But inflation, when the Consumer Price Index came out on Tuesday by the Bureau of Labor Statistics out of the Labor Department, went up 8.5%. The producer price is all the goods that go into making a product. That went up 11.2%. The problem is, and I feel it because I'm at the lower end, because I mean, I have business creators struggling, working at a restaurant and everything. Everybody I talk to, gas prices are killing everybody.
Yeah.
Food prices are killing everybody. Everybody's rent is going up. So everybody's having to recalibrate how they spend their money. But nothing's getting any better.
So you're also coming into a little bit of a situation too, because we're in a job market where they're looking for people to work, but yet you kind of fall into this kind of category where, you know, the low level jobs, the only reason why you might get one of those is because they're just like
they need people.
Yeah, they need people, but also a lot of the time, and you hear the same thing, is like you're overqualified.
That's all I get, because who wants to hire someone in their late 50s who's got a master's degree, who's got experience, who's got education, who's got everything that they need, but they don't want to hire you?
Yeah.
So you're falling into the lower wage, and then they always say, you know, you're way overqualified. Even this latest, I got a potential employment opportunity, and they said the same thing. How long are you going to stay with us? That's always, I get the same.
Until the wheels fall off.
Yeah, and I'm like, but you need work, you need a job, you need certain things. So, but maybe there's a reason I was in these positions, because I understand what people are going through, because I'm going through it.
Well, maybe if you get that 6-figure job, which would be nice, but maybe it just ties you up where you can't do this, what we're doing right now.
Maybe another way to look at it is I wouldn't understand what someone's going through. Because if you look at inflation, and Joe Biden or President Biden keeps saying that it's because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. But last spring, like March, April of last year, he kept saying inflation is transitory. It's because, now part of the problem, he's right. Once they shut down the economy, then they reopened it. Demand shot up, but supply chain bottlenecks, supply chain disruption couldn't keep pace.
So is this kind of relation to why inflation is so bad as well? Because there's jobs, but there's not people filling those jobs, so there just kind of leaves up.
Well, the reason is that when companies are overinflating their wages just to retain people and to bring people on. But the point President Biden made was correct in this. When we shut down the economy, then we reopened it, demand shot up and supply couldn't keep pace. But during 2020, savings rates went up considerably because people had no place to go. Like you guys like to travel to Universal Studios. Well, you didn't go to Universal Studios because you couldn't go. So everybody saved money. So when they opened the economy, everybody was ready to spend. That was the stimulus that was needed instead of coming from the government. So One, they did an unnecessary stimulus with President Trump in December of 2020, but the biggest one that was put on steroids was the American Rescue Plan. And Larry Summers, the former Treasury Secretary for Bill Clinton and former senior economic advisor for Barack Obama in his first term, what he had stated was, you don't need to do that. Just spend money trying to get the vaccine out to everybody, solve the supply chain disruption. They didn't do that. They just spent about $2 trillion, gave people more money, so they put more money into the economy, but there was nothing for you to buy because they haven't fixed the supply chain disruptions. And then the biggest thing they did, which factors into both the CPI and the producer price index, even though the producer price index doesn't include energy and food, is energy costs. They got rid of the Keystone XL pipeline. They stopped any leases or permitting on federal lands. They overregulated the energy sectors. They're trying to prevent the energy sector from getting capital they need to expand. So when you limit supply and the demand for that item goes up, high prices follow. But think about how many industries rely on energy. The store I work at, they pay $10,000 a month for energy costs.
Yeah.
And then every store, there's a Target right across the street. They have a sign saying we have to limit our electrical output because of costs.
They're also rationing out baby formula.
Yeah. So then you've got farmers. Food costs have gone up, and this went up far faster. The war put it like icing on the cake, but all these things were happening way before Russia decided to invade Ukraine.
But the Biden administration seems to have like this perfect storm of
everything is happening
of effing up.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, is there any of this kind of like fall back on a previous administration? And maybe I can explain a minute. So, under Trump, everything was kind of bustling and everything was good and the economy was great and jobs this and low unemployment that. But they were saying, oh, it's because of what Obama did in the previous years that did that. Now, is there something where they can go back and say, well, the reason why the inflation is so high and gas is so high is because of the policies Trump put in place to where they are now?
The only thing that Trump did was probably got it maybe moving a little bit. We don't know how it would play out because he didn't win the election. Was the second the stimulus they did in December of 2020. But all this happened in his final year in office. So we don't know how those policies, if they didn't do the American Rescue Plan, and if President Trump was president, would we have some of the supply chain disruptions?
Well, I think
we just don't know because hindsight's 20. You can't speculate what somebody would do.
But if I could, I would think this. COVID is kind of just poof. I mean, I think there's maybe a city reinstated some mask mandates. Why, I don't know, but it almost seems like it's gone. So I think where we are now was where we would have been in the beginning of 2021.
Now, the only difference that I could suspect when it came to just the supply chain disruption is Trump understood the market. He understood currency devaluation, current monetary policy, fiscal policy, because he was a billionaire. He owned a corporation, did things in many countries. So he understood all these things. So Joe Biden has been a senator since 1973. I was a third grade. So he spent his whole career in government. Everything was paid for. He didn't have to worry about anything. Many of his administration, they cut their teeth in either academia or government. I don't think there's anybody that ran a business. Janet Yellen is Treasury Secretary. She's never run a business. Many of his economic advisors have never run a business. Even his senior economic advisor was, when they were talking about on Tuesday with the CPI jumping up 8.5%, he was talking about we just need more government spending.
Well, maybe we can go into CPI a little bit. What is the CPI? Because it's like kind of
it's Consumer Price Index that discusses that that hits every price in America, every product, gas, food, everything. And they've seen everything has gone up considerably. Food costs, bacon, pork, meat, eggs, used car, new car, everything is touched has gone up. That factors in. The Producer Price Index, like I said earlier, these are all the items and product that go into making something, like copper wiring, steel, aluminum, but everything has gone up, and they're going to continue to go up, and food costs are going to continue to rise. So the point I'm making is Joe Biden and the Democrats, a lot of Democrats, have spent their whole life in government. The last Democrat who ran for president, who ran a business, was Jimmy Carter, and he was a farmer.
Yeah, peanut farmer.
But Joe Biden has never done any of that stuff. He talks like I'm one of you because he was born in Scranton until he was 8 or 9, but he spent his whole life in Delaware. His family was pretty affluent.
Yeah.
So going back to my situation, I understand what people are going through because I'm going through that. I'm living with a friend of mine, staying at his place just so I can save some money to get my own place.
Yeah.
I deal with, when I was applying for jobs, I got to look for jobs that are fairly close so it's not going to cost me a lot of money in gas. When it comes to looking for an apartment, I have to look what the price is going. And I know South Tampa is expensive, but now I'm being forced to maybe go outside where I really want to live. But then you can't go too far because you got to commute in.
Yeah.
So then when you go get food, I went shopping, let's see, Saturday, and I bought maybe 9, 10 items, and it was like $60.
Yeah.
And before that, those items would have cost me less. So that maybe gives me more insight to what the worker person is feeling, where Joe Biden doesn't understand that, because prior to him becoming president, he was a private citizen. He was a professor making a high 6-figure salary.
Yeah.
Then he was vice president for 8 years, and then 36 years as a U.S. senator, where his transportation's paid for, his home is paid for, he gets a stipend, he gets all this stuff. So I don't think and then his administration has never lived the life. It's like when Pete Buttigieg, the Secretary of Transportation, says, well, if you want not to pay a high gas price, just buy an electric car. Well, an electric car costs between an average $50,000. If you get a $7,000 rebate, you're around $43,000. Who can afford a $43,000 car?
No. And then kind of like,
so, but I mean, all these things are playing in, and I think and Republicans are just as guilty. There's like Paul Ryan, when he was Speaker of the House, he was a congressman for about 20 plus years, so he graduates college, law school, maybe tools around for a year, then he ran for Congress and won. So he doesn't understand what it's like. I would bet you many members of Washington, they don't shop at Target, Walmart, Winn-Dixie, or any discount or the dollars. They don't shop at these places.
So what I was going to say is, like, also from your perspective, you have your shit together when it comes to, you probably have a budget, you probably have some kind of money and savings, you probably have some kind of, you take care of bills. You say like the biggest thing that's affecting you is credit cards, but you seem to be very organized and probably disciplined in what you don't eat that much. You have a small budget when it comes to like food and stuff like that. Now that's you. Okay. Now let's look into a family of, say, 4, on average, and then you have 2 working people. They're probably barely getting by, especially if they're both living off $15 an hour. Not everybody is as, like, I fell into the post office. I happen to be making a very decent living doing that, but it's only by, it was never by design.
Correct.
And, and it just, my retirement kicks in, or like my disability or whatever you want to call it. So that's kind of like a good cushion for me. But I don't have my crap together. You do.
Well, to a degree. I mean,
But what I'm saying is, you have a family that might not, and then that family's probably swimming in debt. They probably are not being able to maybe properly afford the gas prices or keep the bills on.
Well, yeah, because if you're a family and you're struggling, it's not like I have my act together. I'm still paying this credit card debt off. I got to manage what I spend. I can't eat. I don't eat out. I really want. Okay, but
you're there by default, though.
Yeah, but as a family, there's a lot of families. I don't want to get the impression that we're saying it's their fault. But if you're making $15, $20 an hour, in a normal time, that would be good money.
Yeah.
But in this time, that doesn't get paid. It's very tight paying the bills.
But now they say that a family is now paying up to $500 more a month.
And $5,000 something a year.
Yeah. Now the administration has to see this. What are they going to do about it?
Well, but see, I don't think they see it. And the reason I don't think they see it, because they keep blaming Putin, because if you've never felt it, I felt it when I remember as a little kid in the 70s. I don't really remember everything, but I remember it was tight. And we had to give money to our parents.
Mm-hmm.
So we worked yard jobs. I worked at McDonald's as many hours as I could as a kid.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, that money went into the family budget. Then when my older brother and me joined the military, we sent allotments home to help our parents out.
Yeah, because you're a great son.
Okay, but then fast forward to today, we're right back at where we were back then.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of these families are struggling because, think about it, 3 years ago or prior to 2021, inflation wasn't a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So $15, $20 an hour was good money to get by on.
So who is going to tell the president or that Biden administration that, hey, this is what's really going on? Oh, you need to open your eyes.
But
or is nobody going to do that?
I don't think he has anybody. Because if you look at his staff around him, they don't have the shared experience.
Somebody's got to see this stuff going on.
But a lot of times, if you get into that level of the presidency, sometimes you're in a bubble.
Mm-hmm.
When you go anywhere, someone drives you. You got Secret Service. Now, when President Biden was a senator, if he went anywhere, someone drove him. Someone paid for his train. He didn't have to pay for anything. He had a budget.
I see that, but someone's got to be up in his ear saying, "Hey, Mr. President, the economy is not doing that great. This is what's going on with the GDP. This is what's going on with inflation. This is what's going on with interest rates. This is what's going on."
Remember, Joe Biden has campaigned as a moderate, but he's governing as a progressive. So the progressives have his ear. And every progressive candidate or political leader like Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, the Squad, all of them have government experience.
Yeah.
They've never dealt anything out in the private sector. Or if they were in the private sector, they were like working for a nonprofit about homeless issues or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't running a business. When you run a business and you've got to pay your salary, you got to pay this, you got to pay that. When you sign the front of the check instead of the back of the check, makes a world of difference. Like Ocasio-Cortez, she wants all these progressive policies, but the restaurant or bar or sports bar she worked at went broke.
Mm-hmm.
They went out of business because of higher rent, higher wages. They couldn't keep up, so they ran out of business.
Yeah.
So a lot of members of Congress and even the administration, take Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary. She's got a PhD. I said this wasn't going to be transitory, but she said otherwise, and she was proven wrong. And they're still proven wrong. They think more government spending is going to solve the problem.
Yeah.
And that's just going to make it work. And if you become a student of history, that's what happened in the 70s, and his tax and other policies are reminiscent of the mid-1930s, which gave us a second Great Depression, only to have World War II pull us out.
Yeah. So, John, why don't you go ahead and tell them how they can get a hold of us?
Well, you can get a hold of us by going to ubaldireports@gmail.com, ubaldireports@gmail.com, or you can go to, obviously on TikTok, you can go to Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, check us out there. Or if you go to YouTube, like or hit our subscribe button so we can get some traction on that. We would love to hear from you on this topic and other topics that we do every Wednesday at 7:30 in the evening Eastern Standard Time.
And we know there's a few of you out there you listening, so please email John with some questions or some topics or something he can look into, so we can talk about it on the show.
And we'd like to know what are you facing in your region, state, city, or county. So until next time, keep listening to Ubaldi Reports.